Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Raising an Ace. Today's episode is going to be about raising Ace to be responsible.
Yeah, we're for sure going to raise Ace to have the highest levels of responsibility and just be self-accountable pretty much. And to you watching this, if you're a parent, raise your child to be responsible. If you're not a parent, this is still applicable to you because a lot of the ideas that we're going to go over, they're for everyone. And everyone is on a level of the self-responsibility journey. You can always improve on that.
Yes.
And responsibility, we're not talking about outside behavior here. We're talking about internal responsibility for yourself, pretty much.
Right.
And we broke it down into 3 areas. Responsibility for your attitude, for your words, and for the decisions that you make, the action part. Those are the controllable aspects of life, pretty much.
Yes.
So that first part, attitude. I'm going to reference Viktor Frankl. He was a person, neurologist, I think a psychiatrist too, or a psychologist, and he overcame the Holocaust. So during that time period, he talks about the last of the human freedoms was his attitude going through it. He looked for opportunities to find joy, hope, maintain belief, and he said that's what got him through. So for Ace, any adverse circumstance, he's got to have the mindset to overcome, not a self-defeating sort of mindset.
Right.
And I want to distinguish something here too. We're not saying Ace can't feel sad inside, right? Because emotions in the heart are different than mindset in the brain. And I go deep with this in an article I wrote 4 years ago called On Your Cocoon Time. I'll put a link in the description for that. So one practical example with this, with Ace, if he's 7 years old and say his friend says something mean to him, or maybe they're not friends anymore, and he's sad about it, we're going to validate that. You're sad, Ace, that's all right. But what's your attitude going to be like going forward? Are you going to let this turn you into a mean person or not trust people or be sad all the time? Or are you going to flip it?
Yeah.
And this is tied in with our last video on toughness too. Be committed to your values no matter what. No matter what happens, pretty much.
Yeah.
This is a very powerful idea.
Right.
And the next thing that I want to mention too with this is he needs to take responsibility for that totally. Your attitude is not dependent on what happens to you. And even if an unjust thing happens, right, you can still address that, but at the same time, no one is coming to save you from a mental standpoint. Psychologically, even if the law or someone addresses something that's unjust, you still have to overcome that psychologically. And that's what we want Ace to understand. And then also, tied to authenticity in the first video, think for yourself. That's your responsibility. Just because the news is maybe giving you something to be fearful of or giving you negative mentalities or someone is, you don't have to give in to groupthink. Still think for yourself. That's your responsibility.
Yeah.
And then the next part is what you say. You're responsible for what you say. We want Ace to understand that. One example that I thought of was, say he's 4 years old. We're at the park and we've been there a while and we want to go home and Ace is upset. He's like, Mom, Dad, I want to stay at the park. Come on, you don't care about me. You don't listen to me. I hate you. So guess what? That same night we'll have a conversation Ace, I remember you saying this. Do you mean it? Do you want to talk about it? And if he says something I didn't mean that, Mom and Dad. My emotions just got the best of me. I couldn't control it. We're not just going to end that conversation there. His emotions shouldn't dictate what he says to the point that he says something that he doesn't mean.
Right.
Words matter, and he needs to understand that. And this is something to be transparent, even us, we can improve on this. So this is so powerful because at an early age, if we can get him to recognize his words should matter and they shouldn't be influenced by his emotions, he needs to take responsibility for his words no matter what. That's so powerful if he can understand that age 4, 5, 6.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, because when you're in the heated situation, sometimes you just say whatever that comes to your mind, and then you kind of regret what you said. So if we could teach him this, it'll be good for him.
For sure. We don't want Ace to be in that position.
Yeah.
And look, a video we're going to talk about towards the end of this series is to be peaceful.
Yeah.
So a part of that is being calm internally, maintaining your inner peace so you don't say something out of character. So watch out for that going forward. Yeah. So we talk about mindset, attitude, words, now action. Ace can't be doing something just because someone else does it. He's responsible for himself. So a couple examples that we thought of was, say he's 8 years old and he's going to school every day, and he's like, look, like no one else is going to school every day. They're cutting class, they're not going to school.
Yeah.
You know, or in sports, a classic example is no one is playing defense. Everyone is lazy on defense, so you individually is like, do I have to play defense too? It's like, yes. Take responsibility for yourself. Your effort level is totally up to you. You know, we don't want Ace to give into peer pressure pretty much to be lazy or do something just because someone else is doing it.
Yeah.
And this is something, honestly, parents need to be conscious of this. Because I hear so much, maybe parents telling their children, like, if someone hits you, hit them back. Which that idea is okay as long as the reasoning behind it is sound. So if you're saying that because you want your child to defend themselves and to diffuse the situation, that's cool. But children don't really think that deeply. So they might interpret that as, look, if someone does something to me, I just do it back.
Yeah.
You know, then they become a puppet, pretty much.
Right.
Like their strings are just pulled based off what happens to them. And that's a very disempowering attitude. You know, and that's tied in with the phrase, hurt people hurt people. Like just because someone hurt you doesn't mean you need to hurt someone else. And this is very deep. We can go much deeper with this. Like most people that abuse people as they get older were abused as a child. You know, if someone didn't have their parent in their life, they might, as they get older, not be a parent to their children.
Right.
But at a certain point, it's your responsibility. It's up to you to overcome what happens to you. Take responsibility for your actions and what you do. Like that's really important. We're going to emphasize with that with Ace as he grows older for sure.
Yes.
And another point too, we're not going to baby Ace. And we're going to be conscious of when other relatives or people are babying him too, teaching or doing things to him that aren't appropriate for his age.
Yeah.
We're going to raise the bar for him. I believe sometimes you need to raise the expectations and have faith that a child will meet it.
Right.
Like one example I'm going to reference with this, Kobe Bryant in 1998, he started every game that year after only starting one game the previous year. So at 20 years old, he played 38 minutes a game. His coach saw his potential and he's like, let me raise his responsibility level and let's see if he reaches it.
Yeah.
So with Ace, we're going to do the same thing. Like he's approaching 1 year right now.
Right.
So we're thinking about things like a typical 11-month-old doesn't do and try to really instill that in Ace. It might be more work initially, but some examples is like buckling his seatbelt, washing his hands, putting his toys away, washing the table after he eats. Like if we can kind of get him to do that early on, that's going to help his responsibility level as he gets older.
Yes.
And this is tied in with independence too. We want him to be independent. So not have fake responsibility, meaning he only does things when we're watching, but when we're not around, he doesn't do it. You know, we want him to have true responsibility, be independent from that standpoint, be intrinsically motivated.
Right.
This is tied in with our To Be Purposeful video, why it's so important to explain the purpose of what you do with your child.
Mm-hmm.
And the next point that I want to mention too is he needs to understand that he controls what he can control. He doesn't control other people. He needs to let go of the responsibility of other people to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So like if he's in a group, like you can positively influence people if you want to,
Yeah.
but at a certain point, don't become frustrated if they're not leveling up to the level that you're at.
Yeah.
You know, and this is something like if you don't nail this in childhood as a parent raising your children, they're gonna grow up trying to control other people.
Yeah.
And when someone understands they're the master of themselves, they have responsibility, they can control themselves, you recognize you can't control another person because that person has that same control. You know, you can't try to control other people and then think you can control yourself. Subconsciously, you're not going to believe that.
Yeah.
So that's a deep concept that I wanted to mention.
Also, teach your kids to take control of their self, because if they don't, like, people will just control them throughout their life.
Yeah, and that ties into like our responsibility is to parent to the best of our abilities, right? Get Ace to master his control of his life.
Yeah.
And the distinction is Ace needs to understand we're not responsible for him. We're just responsible to parent him to the best of our abilities. He's responsible for him.
Right.
And why is that important? Because when a child believes their parent is responsible for them, then when they do something bad or they exhibit a negative personality trait, they won't take blame for it.
Right.
Or they won't try to improve. Or when they do something positive, they won't take pride in it. And that's why that's such an important concept. So if he's 4 or 5 years old and say he's making a fuss at the grocery store, then he comes home and he's like, look, like I just did it because you didn't give me the candy bar, Mom and Dad. You know, he needs to understand his reaction to it is totally up to him. It's not dependent on what we did or what someone else did.
Right.
It's up to him.
Yeah.
You know, and flip that. If he does something positive, like help a elderly lady with her groceries, he can't say, well, you know, it's not really my responsibility since you referenced that I should do it 2 weeks ago. No, he's like, we're not saying it's your responsibility per se, but it's take pride in it. Like, you did that, take pride in it.
Yeah.
And like when children think their parents are just responsible for them, they don't take pride with things. And that's a very destructive mentality.
Yeah.
And the big point of this video is with that, responsibility is not a bad thing. Because to have meaning in life, purpose, and power, you need responsibility. And a child that believes they have no responsibility for things, they believe that the positive things in their life and the negative things in their life, they have no control over. It just happens. That's a very destructive mindset to have. We want Ace to understand, he controls the controllable aspects of his life. He's responsible to take ownership of his life. We don't own him. Yeah. He owns himself. Yeah. His mindset, the words he says, and the actions that he takes. You know, and a deep thing I want to mention too, when we die, when Ace dies, God is not going to say, Ace, you didn't live up to your potential because of this health issue, because of this thing that happened to you. It's all right. That's not going to happen. We only get one life here on earth. God put it upon us to overcome what he gave to us. So we got to put the responsibility on our shoulders to overcome that. Yeah. And you know, to you parents out there, really think deeply about that concept. Responsibility is a good thing. Put it on your child. Yes. Empower them to be the captain of their ship and then release them pretty much.
Yes. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and also like our videos.
Yep. We appreciate all the love, feedback. I mean, next video we're going to talk about optimistic attitudes. Subscribe to get notified about that. Yes. So Ace is breastfeeding right now, but look, I can hear him in his head. He's saying, we love you. He's saying, thank you for watching and looking forward to next time.
Yes.
Take care.
Bye, guys.